All right, let's step inside the Bridge Biscotti Club. You can practically smell the espresso, right? It's a place where every Sunday afternoon, friendships are tested and fortunes are won or lost, all based on a single bid. Today, we're diving into a really cool mystery about communication, about strategy, and, believe it or not, about how a little bit of deception can be a very good thing. So, here's the puzzle at the heart of it all. We've got two different teams sitting at two different tables, but they're playing the exact same hand of cards, and yet they end up with completely opposite results. How? Well, it all comes down to one crucial moment, one bid that seems to go against all the rules. Let's see how it all unfolded. So first up, let's head over to room A. Here we have Robert and Tom. Now, these guys are playing by the book, doing exactly what they think they're supposed to do. They're communicating the honest truth about their hands, or so they think. But as you're about to see, sometimes being too honest can get you into a world of trouble. Okay, so the bidding starts off pretty standard. Robert opens one spade. Tom responds one no trump, just showing some basic values. Then Robert shows his second suit, hearts. And then we get to step 4. This is where the wheels start to come off. Tom bids 3 hearts. He's trying to be a good partner, right? He's showing a preference for Robert's newest suit. The only problem? He doesn't actually have good heart support, but Robert doesn't know that. He hears 3 hearts and thinks, great, we have a fit, and he jumps right to game, 4 hearts. And you can just feel the confusion in Tom's voice here. You can see what he was thinking, right? He just wanted to be helpful. Robert has hearts, so I should support hearts. He was being an honest, cooperative partner. But here's the thing about bridge. Honesty without accuracy, well, that's a recipe for disaster. His bid created this beautiful illusion of a strong heart fit that just wasn't real. And the result? Ouch. The contract goes down, they fail by 1 trick, and because they're vulnerable, that's a penalty of minus 100 points. A really painful score that came from just one well-meaning but totally misleading bid. Now remember that number, because what happened next door is a completely different story. So now we'll pop over to room B. George and Aunt Mildreds are sitting there with the very same cards. But Mildred's, she's about to make a bid that, on the surface, looks like an outright lie. Okay, check out this sequence. The first 3 bids, identical. George opens 1 spade, Mildred says 1 no trump, George shows his second suit, 2 hearts, but then we get to Mildred's turn. Instead of supporting those hearts, she does something really clever. She bids 2 spades, going back to George's first suit. Now here's the kicker. She doesn't have great spade support either. But this bid isn't really about spades, it's a secret signal. And George gets it loud and clear, and he correctly takes them to the perfect contract, 3 no trump. And here's the genius of her move, straight from the source. Mildred's bid was basically a warning. She was saying, hey partner, I'm weak over here, and whatever we do, let's not get tangled up in hearts. I'd much rather go back to your first suit than play in your second. It was a lie that actually told a much, much deeper truth about her hand. And the result for them? A
A home run! They made their 3 no-trump contract with ease, scoring a massive 600 points. A beautiful outcome. And it's all thanks to that one clever, totally counterintuitive bid.
I mean, just look at this for a second. The difference is staggering. This chart shows the incredible 700-point swing between the two tables. Over here in room A, Tom's honest bid costs his team 100 points. But over in room B, Mildred's lie wins her team 600 points. Same cards. So what is this powerful, almost magical technique she used? All right, let's imagine everyone back in the club lounge. The cards are put away, the coffee and biscotti are out, and the two teams finally start comparing notes. And this is when the big light bulb moment happens. And leave it to young Timmy to just nail it with this question. This is the whole key. It's not about tricking your partner. It's about protecting the partnership from getting into a terrible contract. It's a more sophisticated, more nuanced form of communication.
So here it is, the official definition. A false preference is when you bid your partner's first suit, even if you don't really have a great holding there, as a way to say, no thank you, to their second suit. It's a tool you use with a minimum hand to describe your weakness and guide the auction to a much safer place.
This chart really breaks it down perfectly. On the one hand, you have true preference, which is what Tom did. It can be so dangerous because it invents a fit that isn't really there, and it basically traps your partner. On the other hand, you have false preference, Mildred's move. That is purely protective. It prevents a disaster by telling the truth about your hand, that you don't support that second suit, and it guides your partner to a much better spot. Okay, so put yourself at the table. Your partner kicks things off with 1 diamond. You respond 1 spade. And now they've come back with a rebid of 2 clubs. Now, that sequence is telling you something really specific. They probably have at least 5 diamonds and 4 clubs. So the spotlight's back on you. What's your next move? And this is the hand you're staring at. You've got a pretty nice 4-card spade suit, and those clubs are solid, which is great for your partner. But, and this is a big but, look at your diamonds. You only have 2 of them, and that was their first suit. You've got some points, some good values, as they say, but it's not a powerhouse hand. This is what makes the decision so tricky. And here's the pickle you're in. If you just pass 2 clubs, you might be leaving a game on the table, right? Your partner could have extra strength, maybe up to 17 points for that bid. But bidding 3 clubs, that feels like you're puffing out your chest a bit too much, promising more than you really have, and maybe pushing the contract too high. You're completely stuck between a rock and a hard place. So this leads us to our first big idea here, this puzzling bidding problem. You know, in bridge, you're not always looking for the perfect bid. Sometimes it's really about finding the least bad bid, the one that keeps you safe but still leaves the door open for something bigger. And the solution here, well, it's completely counterintuitive. It's a bid that, to anyone just watching, would look like a complete and utter blunder. But in reality, it's a piece of strategic genius. So what is this brilliant, secret move? Well, this is where we introduce the concept of the strategic lie. It's called false preference. So what on earth is false preference? It's a tactic where you bid to show preference for your partner's first suit. In our example, that's diamonds, even though you actually have more cards in their second suit, which was clubs. It's a tiny, calculated lie you tell for the good of the team. The key word here is false. You're not actually showing a real preference. You're using this bid to send a very, very specific message about your hand strength and where you think the auction should go. So why would you ever do this? Why tell this lie? Well, there are a few really smart reasons. First, you're betting that your partner's first suit is their longer one. A 5-2 fit in diamonds might play better than a 4-4 fit in clubs. Second, it keeps the bidding low and safe. And this is crucial. It gives your partner another turn to bid if they do have that stronger hand. It keeps the dream of making game alive without getting you in trouble. Let's be super clear on what this bid is communicating. It is a tactical move for safety. A lot of the time, it's a sign-off, basically saying, hey partner, if you're minimum, let's just park it right here. It is absolutely not a big invitation to game, and it is not a promise of real support. In fact, it pretty much screams that you have minimal, probably just 2-card support.
Okay, so we get what it is, we get why it's so clever, but when do you actually use it? Let's dive into the practical rules of engagement.
Here's a quick and dirty guide. You want to use false preference when you have one of those in-between hands, invitational values, maybe 9 to 11 points, where game is possible, but not a sure thing. You want to avoid it if you have a dead minimum, super weak hand. In that case, just pass. And here's the golden rule. Never, ever make this bid as a jump. Jumping to their first suit means the complete opposite. It shows a really strong hand. Now this is where we really sharpen your skills. To truly master this, you have to know what it isn't. There are a few other bids that can look and feel pretty similar, so let's draw some really clear lines in the sand. The biggest mix-up is between false preference and true preference, and the difference is dead simple, but it's absolutely vital. It's all about the support. False preference is made with just 2 cards. A true preference shows genuine support, 3 or more cards. One is a tactical maneuver. The other is just a statement of fact about your hand. Then you've got this other thing called fourth suit forcing. Now, its purpose is completely different. When you bid the last unbid suit, you're not showing a preference for anything. It's a purely artificial coded message that basically says, partner, tell me more, so you can figure out the best contract. This table right here lays it all out perfectly. Look at that natural column. False and true preference are natural bids. They're about the suits. But fourth suit forcing? Nope, that's artificial. It's just a question. Then look at strength. False preference is weak. Fourth suit forcing is strong. It's forcing you to game. This is your cheat sheet for telling these critical bids apart. So let's bring this all home. How do you actually remember all this? And more importantly, use it in your own games. I'm going to give you a super simple 3-point checklist. 1, your partner has shown 2 suits. 2, you have that in-between and invitational strength, not super weak, not super strong. And 3, you have minimal, just 2 card support for their first suit. If you can check all 3 of those boxes, bingo, you are in the perfect zone for a false preference bid. But if you remember just one thing from all this, let it be this. False preference isn't really about picking a trump suit. It's a sophisticated communication tool. It's how you tell your partner with incredible nuance about the strength of your hand. It's you saying, hey, I'm interested, but I'm not that strong. The ball's in your court, partner. So, after all that, what's the big lesson we can pull from our little adventure at the Bridge Biscotti Club? It's a pretty fascinating principle, and honestly, it goes way beyond just the card table. So what was the real difference here? Let's break it down and put these 2 strategies side by side. It really shows you why the honest bid failed so badly and why the false bid worked so spectacularly. Yeah, this table really lays it all out. In that first auction, Tom in the north seat accidentally claimed he had more hearts than he did. That led Robert to the wrong conclusion and, boom, a failing contract. But in the second auction, Mildreds accurately described her hand's limitations. She said, I've got no heart fit and no extra points. And that clear message guided George to the right spot, the only winning contract on the board. And here's the thing, when you really look at all the cards, there was never a good 8-card fit in any suit. The hand was just built for a no-trump contract. That was always the best spot. The false preference was just the key that let the partnership figure that out. So what does this all mean? It means that sometimes a false bid is actually more true. It's more accurate than the so-called honest bid. It's a tool for telling your partner what you don't have. The big takeaway here is that some bids are about showing your limits. An honest preference can accidentally promise strength you don't have, leading your partner astray. But a false preference, that's like pulling the emergency brake. It keeps the bidding low and points your partner in the right direction when a suit game just isn't in the cards. Here's the moral of the story. In a partnership game like Bridge, simple, raw honesty isn't always the best policy. What really matters is accuracy. A bid that accidentally misleads your partner is so much more damaging than a bid that intentionally signals a warning. And get this, sometimes the most truthful thing you can possibly do is to pretend you like your partner's first idea just to keep them from running with a second idea that you know will be a disaster. And we'll end on this perfect toast from Bartek at the club. To false preference, the lie that tells the truth. It just sums it up so beautifully. It's a strategy where a bid that looks dishonest on the surface actually contains a much deeper, more important truth. It protects the partnership, and in this case, it won the day. Makes you wonder, right? What other parts of life are there where a small lie can actually lead to a better, more truthful outcome? Something to chew on.
Subscribe our channel for more videos.